So we're all going to get older. Some of us may already be there. And with aging comes lack of balance. We tend to have less balance as we get older. And as our balance decreases, our risk of falls goes up. Not a good thing. So in our time this week, I want to talk about several ways that you might employ to improve your balance, help reduce your risk of falls, and hopefully improve the quality of your life. Hey, I'm Joe Cannon, and I want to welcome you to another episode of my podcast. I am an exercise physiologist. If you're just joining me for the very first time, hey, welcome if you are. But I bring that up because as an exercise physiologist, one of the groups that I tend to work a lot with are older adults. I remember, again, true story, many years ago, it was actually an older lady. She was probably in her 70s at the time. And she came up to me and she said to me, "You're the guy who works with the older people." And I laughed and I said, "Well, I kind of work with everybody, but yeah, I do. I used to run actually a program of about 20 different programs devoted to older adults, people with diabetes, heart disease, pregnancy, and stuff like that." But as she said that, I walked back to my office and I said, "Wow, she's absolutely right. I am the guy who specializes in the older people." Again, that was fine. I actually enjoyed it. I just never really pigeonholed myself like that before until she brought it up. But since that moment, a whole those years ago, my goodness, again, I've worked with people over the age of 100. That was actually my grandmother, by the way. She was 104, and I remember distinctly trying to help her make her stronger and improve her balance. So this is something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, and I want to share some ideas with you this week to, again, help improve the quality of your life or the quality of your loved one's life. And again, this is a big deal for those who may not be thinking about it, and maybe the younger people. It's a big deal. America, again, I know a lot of you are in America, but also in other countries out there, most countries are getting older. First world nations, if you will, tend to be growing older. And if I went to the CDC website before I recorded this episode, just to give you an idea, handle on how significant this issue is, from the CDC website, they tell you 20% of falls causes a serious injury in people. 20% of falls causes serious injury. Every single year, 3 million older people are treated in emergency departments for fall injuries. Over 3 million people a year go to the ER in the hospital for fall-related injuries. Over 800,000 people a year are hospitalized because of a fall. Again, these statistics are relevant to America, but I think they're also relevant to other first world nations as well. So over 800,000 people a year are hospitalized for falls. Falls are the most common cause of traumatic brain injury. Makes sense. People fall, they hit their head. More than 95% of hip fractures are caused by falling. Again, makes sense. You hit your head, many times you break your hip. Again, as we get older, we suffer many times from osteoporosis or osteopenia, lack of bone density. And as we fall, that impact can break or fracture the bones. And the hip is one of the main bones that's often broken. The wrist is actually another bone. Wrist bones are also broken as well, because as people fall, they tend to put their hands out in front of themselves to protect themselves. And so the wrist bones are also very highly ranked up there in terms of bones broken. In 2015, medical costs, just in the US alone, exceeded $50 billion because of falls. And the most scary statistic of all, and I bring this to your attention because I want to share with you the gravity of what we're talking about this week. From 2007 to 2016, the death rates from falls have increased by 30%. I'll say that again. Between 2007 and 2016, the risk of dying from falls has increased by 30%. That may be due to a number of things. Perhaps, again, as America ages, the population ages, so we may have more older adults in 2016 than 2007. I think that is true, actually. It may also reflect changing norms in the society. Again, we tend to not move as much as we get older. And that's a problem. Again, other countries may move more. They may not drive, down the block to the supermarket, for instance. They may walk there or bike there. So I think lack of movement in general does contribute to a lot of these. And that's, again, one of the main thrusts of what I want to share with you today. There are some things that we could do to improve our quality of life by improving our balance and reducing, in turn, our risk of falling. One of the things that got me thinking about this and wanted to do an episode on this is recently I did a review of a balance training gizmo. I won't name it, but I saw it on TV and it was showing up in my social media feeds, and I thought, let me do a review of this. And it's an intriguing device. If you go over to joe-cannon.com, my personal website, and you go and you look in the search box and you just type in balance, the gizmo will show up. And I did a deep dive into this thing, and I came to the conclusion it probably will improve balance. There's no doubt about it. It was a little on the pricey side. And again, we're living in strange times these days where money is no object. And so I thought, are there lesser expensive ways that we might employ to improve our balance, improve our quality of life, and reduce our risk of falling? So basically, I'm just going to summarize a lot of this data for you here. And I'm going to start with probably the most common way here, which is essentially walking. Walking. Walking can improve balance. It makes sense that as we get older, our balance would get less because as we get older, our fear of falling increases. And as we fear more of falling, we do less movement. As we do less movement, our muscles weaken and other things happen. And that can also play a role in declining balance. So I'll just say walking in general can improve your balance and reduce your risk of falls. And as some evidence of this, here's a study that I came across as I was preparing for this episode. It came out in 2014, the effectiveness of treadmill training on balance control in elderly people, a randomized clinical controlled trial. So this study is pretty straightforward. It's got 30 older adults, and what is unique about this is that these 30 older adults, they were not really frail. They did not need walkers and canes. So they were able to do their daily activities pretty well, it sounds like. But they essentially took these people, they broke them up into two groups. They had the people who just went about their normal daily activities, whether going to the store or whatever, doing housework, stuff like that. And then the other group was the treadmill group. So here, these individuals performed 3 30-minute sessions on the treadmill, and they did both walking forward and walking backward too. They did this three times a week for 1 month. So they completed 12 sessions over the course of a month. And lo and behold, after the study is done, they find those doing the walking showed significant improvements in not only their walking speed, but they also had less what's called postural sway. And that means that as they walked, their posture didn't really deviate from where it should be. They didn't lean too far forward, for instance, as they were walking. That's actually an issue because as people walk and they start leaning forward, their center of gravity changes and they might fall forward basically on their face. And that's also compounded, by the way, just as a side note here, that's also compounded in people who have osteoporosis. If you see people who have really, really bad osteoporosis, notice that their upper back curves forward. Okay, that's called technically kyphosis, that hunched back you see with osteoporosis. Well, if you have that hunched back, you're already leaning forward a little bit. That can alter your center of gravity. You combine that with maybe weak trunk muscles, weak other muscles like of the legs, etc., that could increase even more that forward postural sway, and that could increase the risk of falls. Again, that was just a side note, but these people had, again, improvements in their walking speeds. It makes sense. The treadmill did improve their walking speed. They had less postural sway, and they could stand still for longer times. Okay, so just standing still. They were able to stand still for longer times, whether they were standing on solid ground or where they were, say, on a foam surface. They probably gave them some kind of an exercise gizmo, like a big foam pad, and had them stand on that. What that means overall is that when they were walking on the treadmill, that was increasing the strength and muscle endurance of their legs, but also their trunk muscles. Okay, also their trunk muscles. And it was also, walking on the treadmill was also improving their balance. Well, if their balance improved, well, that theoretically means they would have less risk of falls. This study, only lasted, 12 sessions. So we're looking at 1 month here. So they really didn't clock how many falls occurred during this study, but it does give some evidence that walking on a treadmill can improve balance. Now, caveat here, they did have these people walking backwards on a treadmill. If you've never been on a treadmill before, I'm just going to say it. I would not suggest you go walking backwards on a treadmill. I would start walking forwards, okay, before, and get the hang of it first. And I also do think, be honest with you here, I do think walking forwards on a treadmill would have the same effect as walking backwards. I also think that if you wanted to go out to a local track and try this out yourself, you could walk forward on, just like in a walking track, and you could eventually even go walking backward on a walking track if you so choose. I think that might be a little safer. Treadmills are very, very popular, especially in most gyms. I do sometimes throw out the little tidbit that, not to scare anybody, but, treadmills, they can be one of the more dangerous pieces of exercise equipment at the gym. And that's mainly due to people who don't clip that little safety device to their shirt, because actually, if the safety device pulls a little magnet off the console, the treadmill stops. Most injuries with treadmills occur when people don't employ the proper safety procedures. They lose their balance and the treadmill basically shoots them back. There have been some instances of that. It is rare, but I do like to throw out these things to you. I'm a bit of a worst case scenario guy. If you haven't listened to me before, you may have picked up on that. If you have listened before, if not, I do like to try to look a couple steps ahead to see what might go wrong. And again, studies are usually conducted under strict clinical standards, and people are watching everybody and making sure everything goes the right way. But in the real world, somebody, maybe listen to a podcast or something and say, hey, that's a great idea. I'm going to jump on a treadmill and start walking, and I'm going to walk backwards, and I've never done it before. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. We want to start with what we're able to do. And again, if you're able to walk backwards, okay. If you're not so able to walk backwards, I wouldn't suggest it. And again, starting at a lower speed, I think, is important as well. Don't be ramping the treadmill up to 5 miles an hour or something like that. You want to walk at a comfortable pace for you. I think that's really, really important. But the study does lend some evidence that walking does improve balance, which again could translate into a lower risk of falls, and that's a good thing. Say nothing for the fact that walking is great aerobic exercise. We know that aerobic exercise has lots and lots of health benefits on the cardiovascular system. It can help our brain function better, our blood vessels function better. It can help body weight go down a little bit. We could talk forever on the benefits of just walking. As a matter of fact, in a previous episode, I think it was, if you go back in the archives and you search for how to live to 100, there was a study that found that if you walked for 15 minutes a day, you might live an extra 3 more years on this earth. Just 15 minutes a day, which is pretty impressive. But enough for that little piece of trivia. Treadmill, okay, that's great. Or walking, maybe, on a track or something like that. I think that'll work terrific for helping balance. We've got another study, which is kind of similar, kind of not so similar here. And again, I'll give you the title of the study here. And I'm going to link to these in the episode description if you want to check these studies out for yourself. This study basically is titled this: Balance of walking and performance are improved after resistance training and aerobic training in people with a stroke. So essentially, the title lets all the suspense out of what I'm about to say. They're basically telling you what happened here. Basically, we got 48 people who've had a stroke. They assign them to two groups. One group either does aerobic training on a bike, so they ride a stationary bike. Another group does resistance training for the lower body only. So they do lower body strength training exercises. But then they also have this other group. They call it the sham training group. I'm not so sure it's a sham training group, but basically what they do here is they had these people do upper body strength training exercises. When I read that, I again, as you can kind of guess, as I just intimated there, when I see upper body strength training, I said to myself, that's probably not the greatest sham treatment, because my thought is it possible that upper body strength training program, well, could have led to neurological changes that basically went downstream and affected the lower body muscles? Maybe. Is it possible that those upper body exercises may have raised anabolic hormone levels, which in turn increased global muscle strength? Maybe. Again, something occurred to me when I saw that. I would probably have liked to have seen the sham training group do nothing at all, but it is what it is. But regardless, the title gave it all away. Everybody improved balance, and also everybody also improved how quickly they could walk. So whether they were riding a stationary bike, whether they were doing lower body strength training or upper body strength training, they could all walk faster and their balance improved. And again, I think the reason the upper body people, I think their ability to walk faster and have better balance improved, again, may be due to the fact that there was some neurological changes going on, and those neurological changes may have, again, went downstream and affected the legs. Hard to say, but again, that's not a bad thing, by the way. It actually is good evidence that even upper body exercise training could improve balance in the lower body. Again, I critique them on the study design, but regardless, you cannot overlook the benefits of what they saw here. Everybody improved balance, and everybody could improve their walking speed as well. So you got two studies on essentially walking. One also throws in some strength training. I'll talk about that more in a moment. But in addition to that, how about this one? Yoga. Doesn't get much easier than yoga. I shouldn't actually say that, because yoga can be kind of hard, actually. I've done it. It actually can be a challenge. But there are studies of yoga improving balance. Here we got one. Yoga-based exercise improves balance and mobility in people over the age of 60. A systematic review and meta-analysis. A meta-analysis is essentially a study of studies. They grab a bunch of similar studies, they throw them together, they mix them up in a pot, and they see if they can find some commonalities here. So here in this investigation, they looked at 6 different studies of yoga and balance, involved over 300 people. Their conclusion is yoga interventions resulted in small improvements in balance and medium improvements in physical mobility in people over the age of 60. And then they go on to say that further research is needed to see if yoga prevents falls. And I would agree. Again, it's something to think about as you maybe peruse the research. Just because something improves balance, it may not always translate into reduced falls. In theory, it makes sense, but the real thing we're looking at is, do you fall less? And according to this research, they were like, well, maybe, we're not sure, but maybe it might do that. And I also get you on the wording. Again, the wording was very clinical. Yoga interventions resulted in small improvements in balance and medium improvements in physical mobility. Not the most resounding endorsement of yoga. I get that. But personally, I do think that yoga does work. I do believe it works. There's a lot of balance going on in yoga if you've ever taken a yoga class. And as further proof of this, I found another study. Yoga's effect on falls in older adults. Here we have a 8-week yoga training program. Let me cut to the chase. Results. Yoga classes reduce falls and improve balance. There you go. So I think when you look at meta-analyses like the previous study I pointed out, they tend to clump studies together, and one of the problems is maybe all the studies are not completely done the same way, and that could throw some issues in with the answers that are crunched out at the end of the investigation. So I personally, again, I do think the yoga does work, and if you like doing yoga, terrific. And if you've taken a yoga class and it has helped your balance, send me an email. You can send me an email at either of my websites, joe-cannon.com or supplementclarity.com. I will love to hear about it. But again, it makes sense overall that yoga would work. Now, related to yoga, we have another modality of exercise, which some of you may have tried before. It's called Tai Chi. And there is evidence Tai Chi can also increase balance. In one investigation, this one's titled Tai Chi as an Intervention to Improve Balance and Reduce Falls in Older Adults, a systematic review and, again, meta-analysis. Here, these researchers looking at 13 previous Tai Chi studies. And their conclusion is, yeah, Tai Chi works. Tai Chi improves balance in older adults. And then they went on to say that Tai Chi not only improved balance, but it reduced falls in older, non-frail adults. And not frail. Frail is a term that essentially means you have trouble doing one or more of your daily life activities. That's one definition for frail. Another definition of frail might be someone who has very, very low muscle strength, like sarcopenia, for instance. See my previous episode on sarcopenia for a deep dive into that research. Sarcopenia is essentially muscle loss as we get older. The study appears to be showing that Tai Chi reduces falls. Again, that's what we want to get to, less falls. That's the real thing. Whether or not Tai Chi reduces falls in frail adults, I didn't see any research on it, but it may be out there and I just missed it. It's possible. It just depends. So regardless, it is good news that we do have some research that Tai Chi can reduce falls. And then rounding out the exercises that I have for you today is, one that I kind of talked about just a few seconds ago, basically strength training. Yeah, there is evidence that resistance exercise, strength training, can improve balance in older adults. I share with you one previous study a few moments ago where it was kind of thrown in the mix, but here is, one of my most favorite studies. Yeah, I do have favorite studies. This one came out in the early 1990s. It was titled High Intensity Strength Training in Nonagerians. Nonagerians, yeah, people over the age of 90. As a matter of fact, I went back and I reread this study before I recorded this episode. The oldest person in this study was a whopping 96 years old. These were people who were in a nursing home. So it's a small study. Okay, this wasn't a 1,000 people study. We got 10 basically really old people. and for 1 month, they're put on a strength training program. No, they didn't have them do CrossFit or high intent. Even though it says high intensity strength training, they didn't do anything like what you're probably used to. Instead, they had them do basically one exercise and that's it. One exercise. What was it? The leg extension. So you've probably seen the leg extension machine at the gym. You sit in it and you basically extend your legs. That's basically it. Now, they didn't drag a leg extension machine into a nursing home. My guess is they probably used ankle weights because, again, these people were as old as 96 years old. These people were most likely not lifting 50 and 60 and 70 pounds on a leg extension. But essentially what they had them do here is, again, for 1 month, they did this strength training program. 3 days a week, they do the leg extensions. They perform 3 sets of 8 reps with 80% of the most weight they can only lift one time. I'll say that again. They did 3 sets of 8 reps with 80% of the maximal load they can only lift one time. So essentially, these researchers figured out the most weight they can lift with their legs one time, and then they took 80% of that. And that's essentially the weight they used. That's where you get the term high intensity in the name of this study. Again, they're doing 3 sets of a heavy weight for only 8 reps. Oh, and one more thing I'll point out before I share with you the results of the study. So as I reread this, I came across something that I hadn't actually noticed before. 40% of these people, so 4 out of 10, were undernourished. They were undernourished. They weighed less than they should. They also weren't getting as many vitamins and minerals as they should have been getting either. I wanted to point that out so you know these nonagerians were not down in protein shakes, by the way. They were not. And again, the fact that they were in a nursing home and they were undernourished, that is actually a discussion for another day, something to think about if you have loved ones in a nursing home. But what happened in this study? So this study is, well, I'll say noteworthy because it provides evidence that people, even in their 90s, that strength training works. So age doesn't appear to be a matter. This is the thing that got everybody's attention here is how much stronger these people got after basically this little strength training program they did in this study. So in this investigation, these people, they became an average of 174% stronger in their legs. I'll say that again. These people in their 90s became 174% stronger in their legs after simply doing this leg extension activity 3 times a week. And by the way, the strength did not plateau at the end of the study. What I'm saying here is they did this study for 1 month. And at the end of the month, they calculated that they grew, their strength improved by 174%. That doesn't mean their strength would not have continued to increase. It just means they measured it at the end of 1 month and it was 174%. It showed no signs of slowing down. So if they had continued that study, who knows how much stronger these nonagerians would have gotten. In addition to that, their muscles actually got a little bit bigger too. And that's what grabbed everybody's attention. Okay, the fact that these people who were almost 100 years old got a lot stronger. But the thing that always jumped out to me, and I really haven't heard too many people talk about it, is that not only were there no falls, nobody falled during this study, but they measured how fast these people could walk. These people could walk about 50% faster. 50% faster at the end of the study than in the beginning of the study. And some of their balances improved as well. To quote the researchers, 2 of the subjects no longer needed canes to walk by the end of the study. So 2 of the people who needed canes didn't need them anymore. 1 of the people who at the beginning of the study could not get out of a chair without using their arms no longer needed to use their arms anymore. How about that? So they no longer needed walkers and canes. Some of them didn't anyway. That's a sign that their balance improved. That was actually a surprise to the researchers. They weren't expecting to see that. All they did was a leg extension, which again, that works essentially 4 muscles in your thighs. 4 muscles, that's it. And just strengthening those 4 muscles improved how fast they could walk, increased their strength dramatically in their legs, made their muscles get even bigger, but also appeared to improve their balance so much some of them no longer needed canes to get around anymore. That is pretty darn interesting. So about a month later, the researchers returned to the nursing home. They retest the strength in these older adults, and they find that they're about 30% weaker. Makes sense when you think about it. It's the use it or lose it principle. These people went from doing nothing to suddenly working out 3 days a week, and then they did nothing again. And so their strength levels declined. They started to use their canes more. They had trouble getting out of a chair again. So you get what I'm coming from here. You get what I'm saying. You gotta continually do this on a regular basis forever. This is not something you can just do for a month or 3 months and then just coast for the rest of the way. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So no matter what you try, you've got to continue to do it for the rest of your life. And that makes sense. So what I would say is that there are some natural ways that you can improve your balance. I would point out that most falls do occur during walking, while a lot of balance training programs do work in a static, non-moving environment. So they'll have you balance on one foot, for instance. So that doesn't necessarily mean you can't just balance on one foot, but I would, if you can, try to couple that with maybe some kind of movement-based balance program, like walking, for instance. I think walking plus some strength training might be better than either one by themselves. Oh, and by the way, I am assuming, as I'm speaking to you today, I am assuming that if you do have some kind of a balance deficit, that's due essentially to muscle weakness. Remember that balance problems can be due to other things. For instance, there could be some medications that could affect balance as well. And so regardless, we don't want to be just jumping into something and just trying to do it without talking to our doctor first. I do think that's really important because, again, some medications can make your balance not so good. And if that's the case, then that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. You need to work with your physician about that. If your balance is essentially off because you're not moving as much, well, then it makes sense that if you were to move more, again, that may improve your balance. And as I pointed out earlier in the episode, even doing some upper body exercises may improve your balance. And I bring that up because sometimes people may not be able to move around as well as they used to be for whatever reason. So anything is better than nothing is what I'm getting at here. So I just gave you several different exercise modalities that may improve balance. They're not the only ones out there. I just want to give you a lay of the land. There's even some evidence out there that water aerobics, aqua aerobics, can improve balance. I mentioned Tai Chi a little while ago. There's other forms of Tai Chi called Tai Chi Cha, which can also have some evidence that they can improve balance and may reduce falls. So again, do your due diligence. Do what you think is best for you. Again, the best exercise, again, that's probably the thing people ask me a lot is, what's the best exercise? And you won't like my answer, but the best exercise is what you like doing. The best exercise is really what you like doing. So if you don't like, Tai Chi, get on, ride a bike then, okay? Stationary bike, real bike. If you don't like strength training, okay, try water aerobics. Try Tai Chi, for instance. There's a lot of options out there. There's one other thing that I want to throw your way this week that you may not be aware of. I have not spoken about this on a podcast yet. I have discussed it at length in seminars I teach, but I'll just give it to you. It's a vitamin. And it's a vitamin that maybe you're taking, maybe you're not taking. It's kind of got some publicity lately because of the whole, pandemic thing. But I'll just give it to you. It's vitamin D. Yeah, vitamin D. There is evidence that vitamin D may improve balance. Multiple studies over the last decade or more have shown that vitamin D may help improve balance in older adults. And that's something to think about because a lot of older adults have been shown to be deficient in vitamin D, and this also includes people in nursing homes as well. Studies have linked being deficient in vitamin D to more falls. So the lower the vitamin D level, the more falls. Researchers have also tend to see less falls in people with higher levels of vitamin D. Think about that. The lower the D, the greater the falls. The higher the level of vitamin D, the less falls people tend to have. So does that mean that vitamin D supplements reduce falls and improve balance? It does seem to be so. As I said, several studies have shown this over the years. And the effect of vitamin D, it varies from study to study. I've seen as anywhere from 20% improvement in balance and reduced falls to maybe as much as 50% improve balance and reduce falls. Again, it just depends on the study in question. But overall, the lay of the land, for the most part, appears to show some improvement in balance due to vitamin D. So what's going on here? How might that be occurring? Well, every cell of your body has receptors for vitamin D, and that also includes your muscle fibers. So is it possible that maybe vitamin D is acting anabolically, muscle building, has a muscle building effect on atrophied muscles such that they get stronger? Maybe. That's a thought. I think we don't really understand this yet. I think one thing that we should always keep in the back of our mind when it comes to vitamin D is that it is more hormone than vitamin. I've said before that I do think that if vitamin D were discovered today, it would be called hormone D and not vitamin D because it has so many different effects in the body. And maybe this improvement of balance may be one of them. In terms of dosage, how much do you take? Generally speaking, not as much as you might think. So in the studies that I have seen over the years, many of these investigations showing improvement in balance and reduced falls have used about 800 international units of vitamin D. 800 units of international units. IU, that's how it's abbreviated on the supplement labels. That's just a little bit more than the RDA. Also, I know if you go to the store, you may be confused because you'll see there's vitamin D2 and vitamin D3. Doesn't matter which one you take. There have been studies using both versions of vitamin D. They appear to work equally as well. And that makes sense. Pretty much all the research shows vitamin D2, vitamin D3, they're equally effective in the body, so you don't have to worry about it. Now, in full disclosure, before you run out to the store and you buy vitamin D, I do want to share with you a little information here. Number one, if vitamin D works, I think it probably works best in those who have not yet fallen or those who have only fallen maybe once, maybe twice. The more falls people appear to have, the less effective vitamin D appears to be. The more people have fallen, the less likely vitamin D is to reduce falls and improve balance. And that kind of makes a little bit of sense. Remember, vitamin D, it's not a magic bullet. And it may have an upper limit to how effective it might be, and there may be a limit to how much good it can do. That's a possibility. So take that into consideration. And then the other thing that I would be remiss if I didn't bring your attention is, well, there are studies out there on vitamin D that actually show just the opposite. Not reduced falls, increased falls. What? Yeah, they're out there. The study that kind of grabs people's attention is this one-year study came out a few years ago. They gave people 60,000 international units of vitamin D for an entire year, and they found that it actually increased the risk of falling in older adults. Yeah, you heard that right. 60,000 international units of vitamin D. That is a lot. That is much more vitamin D than what most people will be taking. And it's also much more vitamin D than you're going to find in your run-of-the-mill vitamin D supplement that you find at your local health food store. So what does this mean? Yeah, I know I probably just confused you by this. You're like, wait a minute, Joe. First you're saying vitamin D reduces falls, and now you're saying vitamin D makes people fall more. What the heck is going on here? One of the things that I think about is, in the studies that show vitamin D works versus vitamin D doesn't work, I think there may be differences in how these studies are constructed. And if that's the case, that may be a reason why, again, we're seeing these discrepancies. That's a possibility. Number two, as I said, there may be an upper limit in how good vitamin D works, how well it works in people. So in some people it may work great, and some people it may not work so great, and that may be dependent on how often they have fallen, how weak their muscles are to begin with. And we could also factor in, are they taking any medications that might increase the risk of falls and nullify the effects of vitamin D? That's something to think about. And then something else to consider is there an upper limit beyond which vitamin D might have the opposite effect? Remember, vitamin D is more like a hormone, and hormones are funny things. Too much, too little, and you can get different effects in the body. And so is it possible what we're seeing here is really, really high dose of vitamin D doing something to increase the risk of falls? Maybe, but I'm not so sure about that. But what I would say to it is this. The study that showed increased risk of falls, it shows a ridiculous amount of vitamin D. 60,000 international units of vitamin D for a whole year. I don't know many people taking that much. Matter of fact, unless a doctor prescribes it because your vitamin D levels are really low, then I don't know anybody taking that much. The majority of the research that I have seen with vitamin D improving falls has used 800 international units of vitamin D a day. That's pretty much accessible in most dietary supplements. Most supplements I see at the store, if you go to look for a vitamin D supplement, they're either going to come in usually 1,000 or 2,000 international units of D. And I think for most people, that's probably going to be fine for the vast majority of people listening to me right now. Again, unless a doctor says, oh, your vitamin D levels are really, really low. Let me give you this weapons grade strength vitamin D to bring your levels back up. I just don't think most people are going to be doing that. And again, at the end of the day, this 60,000 international unit study, it's one study. It's one study. I'm not going to take that one study and have that weigh more than all the other studies that have found vitamin D works. And again, I've seen probably 10 or so studies over the years on this. That tells me there probably is an effect here, at least for people who are fairly high functioning, maybe a little bit of weakness on the muscle weakness scale. Again, it is going to vary from person to person, but it may be worth something taking a look at. Definitely discussing with your doctor. Say, next time you go to your doctor, say, hey, I heard that vitamin D may reduce falls. What do you think about that? I'm sure the physicians have heard of this research. It has made the rounds. These studies, some of them have been out over 10 years. So I know a lot of doctors have heard about them. So again, bring it up to your physician, see what he or she's got to think about it. So there you have it. Several different exercise interventions and one potentially nutrition intervention that might help improve your balance. Again, no medical advice given. I'm not a doctor. Don't play one on TV. Definitely don't play one on a podcast. So always do talk to your doctor. But if you've tried any of these, let me know. Give me an email and let me know what you think. You can easily reach me at either my websites, joe-cannon.com or supplementclarity.com. Again, joe-cannon.com website is my review of that balance gizmo that kind of made me start thinking about it less. I'm going to link to it actually in the description of the episode to make it easier. And you just click the link in the description. It'll take you right to that exercise device and you can check it out for yourself. So there you got it. I'm going to end our time this week except for my one final piece of business. It's the quote of the week. And here it is. The best way to predict your future is to create it. Abraham Lincoln. Until next week, I'm Joe Cannon. Go out, be safe, and where you can, try to make a difference.